Welcome to Wrong Time Watch. My name is Kevin, and today we're looking at the Seiko Samurai Save the Ocean Special Edition. This is the model number on this is SRPD23, and MSRP appears to be $525 for this watch. This watch was lent in by a subscriber and is actually for sale. So if you're interested in it, send me an email. All right, so let's zoom in on the dial here. So from what I can find, this has a Hardlex crystal, and I believe this is a ceramic bezel insert. There's actually some three-dimensional grooving to this. The numbers and the hash marks here are machined down into the surface, and it looks and feels like hard ceramic, but I don't know for sure. So anyway, if you look at the dial here, it has this textured gradient blue dial. It's a very cool dial. Also, I've seen this watch referred to as the Great White Shark Edition. So it's a cool watch. And then if you look at the counterbalance on the second hand there, it kind of looks like a shark fin. And I believe there's a shark fin engraved in the dial somewhere too, in the texture. Can't really see on my monitor here, but maybe you can see it on your end of the camera there. So very cool dial. These are applied indices. Seiko is printed on there, as well as the PS or PX for Prospex. Right there. Now it's in focus. So automatic divers 200. So it's actually ISO certified to 200 meters water resistance. And you can see a date there at 3 o'clock. So definitely has some nice large indices here, and the hands as well. I'm sure the loom's going to be amazing on this. We'll check that out towards the end of the video. I'll compare it to my SKX. I'm expecting this to outshine the SKX. So if you know if this is Hardlex or not, please let me know. I'd appreciate that feedback. The crystal is a subset from the bezel here, so there's kind of a little bit of a lip on the bezel right there on both sides. A little bit different than what I'm used to. It is a knurled bezel, so there is a little bit of polishing on this, but the most of this watch is brushed. So you see some polishing right here on the case where it's kind of machined in here, which is kind of an odd place, because if you set the watch down on the table, it's going to be sitting on that polished surface. So be careful with these watches, any watch with polished surfaces. I try to put them on a silicone mat. I have some linked in the video description if you want to buy some. They're just kitchen mats, but anyway, I use them for a lot of things. And here we have the crown. It's not a signed crown. It, of course, is screw down. This watch has a very angular case shape. Everything on here is angular. I've seen these with the Hexad bracelet before, which is an angular bracelet as well, kind of a hexagonal shaped bracelet. But this has a Seiko bracelet on it. So right back to the case, we have these drilled lugs. The watch is quite large. You'll see it on my wrist here in a moment. It's very large for my wrist. Let's try the bezel action. It feels a little loose, but not terrible. Let's see if it lines up. I think it lines up pretty good. Let me know what you think. See, I do like these watches. They're just too big for my wrist. I had the previous generation. I think that was the SRPC91 or 93, but I ended up selling that. Actually, I sold that to a subscriber. Hopefully he's still enjoying that watch. All right, let's zoom back out here. So as far as loom, of course, it has Seiko Lumibright on the hands and on the applied indices as well. And I did mention the movement brace briefly. This has the Seiko 4R35 movement. That is date only. So let me show you also more about this movement. It is hand winding. So the first pop out when you unthread it is hand winding. Then I'm going to pull it all the way out just to move the handset. Yep, so put it at about 6 o'clock, so we're not in the danger position for changing the date. So hand winding, one pop out, it should be in date set. There we go, changing the date. And again, all the way out is time set, and the second hand has stopped, so we're hacking the second hand. It's about 40 hours of power reserve. That second hand does beat at 6 beats per second. So it's not a high beat, but it's still pretty smooth in my opinion. So there it is, ticking away. So the case is 316L stainless steel, and it's mostly brushed. Top of the case, most of the side of the case, and then the bracelet, all the top of the bracelet is brushed. The clasp is brushed, and then the sides are polished here. So the crown is knurled, and the bezel is knurled as well. That's not usually something you see very often. Okay, back to the clasp. It has the dive extension in here, which I don't really care for the dive extension. I'll never use it, and it kind of can be a little bit uncomfortable on wrist. And then it also makes the clasp even longer, because now from here to here is your clasp. So it's a very large amount of clasp on here. For micro adjust, we do have solid end links and solid links. But this portion is a stamped clasp. It's not a milled clasp. I don't mind either way, but I know a lot of folks don't like this part of the clasp being stamped. And then this part is stamped as well. And I think I already mentioned the 4 micros. Yeah, I don't think you can fit another one in there because you have this depression right here for getting to that safety clasp. So dual pushers in addition to the safety clasp. So this thing will be really secure on wrist. And as I mentioned, the watch is 200 meters water resistance. So you'll see if I can do, sometimes you can get this to look like a rocket, the hour hand and minute hand. Yeah, right there. So reminds me of a rocket. Very nice. Let's zoom in down at the 6 o'clock. I don't know if this is made in Japan. Looks like it might be. It says Japan there, so I'm assuming that's made in Japan. Let's see if we can find the shark fin. I could have sworn there was a shark fin on here somewhere. Oh well, camera's not cooperating with me. Anyway, let's zoom back out. We'll get this on wrist, and then we'll talk about the dimensions. Actually, we'll talk about the dimensions first. Okay, so this has the positive end links on the bracelet. So when it's on bracelet, it essentially extends the lug to lug. So this dimension here from my thumb, between my thumb tips, looking at 53 millimeter, and my wristband is 52 millimeters. So this watch overhangs my wrist. Lug to lug on the case itself, 48.2 millimeter. And then the diameter of this thing is a beast. I measured the bezel diameter just because it's easier to measure. That's 43.7 millimeter. 43.7 millimeter bezel diameter. Thickness on it, it's not too terrible. 13.4 millimeter thickness. So very similar to my Seiko SKX. I'll show these side by side in a moment. Bracelet, 22 millimeter lug width here, and it does taper, but only tapers down to 20. I'd like to see it taper down to 18, but it's a big watch, so I guess that fits the watch. A 7 millimeter crown, which I have not threaded back in yet. There we go, 7 millimeter crown, and this watch is size for the subscriber who sent it in. His wrist weighs in at 186 grams. I would say he probably has a 7.5 inch wrist. I have a 6.5 inch wrist. So there we go. I guess it doesn't look too terrible on my wrist. You know, the lugs here are fairly short, and the positive end links, you don't really notice them overhanging my wrist. I'll try and zoom in here and see how that looks. So there we go. Looks like it's a little bit too much to zoom. Okay, let's zoom back out. Doesn't look too tall on the wrist, I guess. That case does kind of bevel backwards on the side profile there. And the case is polished in between the lugs here. Okay, let's show it side by side with the SKX, and then we'll go right into the loom. Get that second hand moving. 7S26, so you just have to basically shake it. You can't hand wind it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Greatly appreciate it, and it really helps me out. Helps me to grow the channel here. So I guess it doesn't look, it does look a little bit larger, but not that much larger. So let me pause the video and we'll check out the loom. I'm sure this one will have, I might have to hold them in my hand. We'll see here how it looks. So the Samurai obviously is on the left and my SKX 009 is on the right. The Samurai is off the table a little bit more, so it may not be a totally fair comparison, but looking at it by eye, the Samurai definitely has more loom. And the loom is a little bit brighter as well. So I don't know if it's because my SKX is about 12 years old by now, but anyway, you can see the loom definitely does not disappoint on either of these watches. So that will conclude this video. As always, thank you for your time and thank you for watching.